We're chilling. Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Sabrina Victoria. This is Her Talk Show, and I am here with Lucie McGuire. Girl, this is one
Hey.
of the coolest names. Lucie McGuire. We're going to be talking all about solo traveling. I'm super excited about this because I do not travel. I have never been outside the United States. So I'm so freaking excited to have this conversation. And the really cool thing about this is she is speaking specifically to women, right?
Yeah.
Women who are thinking about or who do travel solo. So I'm super excited. So get comfortable. We're going to explore some of the challenges faced by women worldwide in this arena. And Lucie is going to be here to give us some insight, some inspiration to fuel this desire that so many people have.
Absolutely. It's a fun topic too. I feel like everybody wants to travel at some point, somewhere.
Absolutely. So let's jump in.
Get ready because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We're here every day. We delve deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women, and today we are adding another one to the list. We have Lucie McGuire. She is the founder of Moxie Adventure Partners, inspiring women to embrace confidence and discover themselves through solo travel. Having explored 29 countries and 29 states in the last 7 years, Lucie is passionate about educating others on how affordable travel can be. She shares practical tips for traveling on a budget and creating life-changing adventures, empowering women to find their moxie, explore new cultures, and discover the beauty of our world. Girl, yes, because it's so mother effing expensive. At least we think it is.
Absolutely. It's a misconception, especially for Americans, of how expensive travel can be. And
I have that misconception for sure.
Yep.
I am very much like, hell no, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, but there is we live this life. We have one life, and it's like we have to make time for what we care about, right? At the end of the day. How many times are we just saying we want to do things and then we don't?
Yes. So before we jump into the price, I'm so freaking excited we're covering this right now because that's one of my main objections. Before we do that, the name is Moxie Adventure Partners. What frick does Moxie mean?
So Moxie means grit, determination, and perseverance.
Are you serious?
It does. And someone one day said to me, "Girl, you have Moxie." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And they're like, "You don't know what Moxie means?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Google it." And I Googled it, and there's a bunch of different definitions, but that's what it boils down to. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I have Moxie. And I want to teach other people to have Moxie."
So that's like a compliment. So to like see a girl who's just like doing her shit, you could just be like, "Girl, you got Moxie."
Yes. It's an old
I love
term.
that. Does anyone ever name their daughters Moxie?
I don't know, but I think that's a great name. I think it would be a great name.
Okay, hang on. Daughters Moxie. I'm looking this up on Google right now. Let's see if anybody's named Moxie.
I wonder. That'd be a cool
yes.
Name. Oh.
Moxie. Yes. Oh, it's actually character from movies. Moxie is used as movies characters, and people have named their daughters Moxie.
Wow. They say so there's like 2 ways to spell it, with a Y or an IE, kind of like my name, right? Lucie with the Y or with an IE. So I went with the IE part because that's the core version of the word. Yeah. And then the adventure part is doing it through adventures and through travel. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. Very, very cool. All right. Well, girl, let's just freaking jump into this. First of all, how did you start?
So it's quite a story. I never expected to be the traveler I am today. And I grew up in a small town, Jensen Beach, Florida, where not many people know about. And I went to, the same high school, middle school, all of that. And when I was growing up, My mom is from Dominican Republic, and so I had been there a couple times for family, but nothing like crazy. It was really just for family. And then my dad's from Pennsylvania, so I went to Pennsylvania. But my parents were never travelers, and I actually had an opportunity in 2018 to travel and study abroad. But the only reason I was able to get that opportunity was because in 2017, some really crazy stuff went on. I was in a relationship that I absolutely did not love myself in. And I was also taking care of my dad, who was failing in his health. And he ended up passing away in 2017, which really taught me how short life is. And he was like my world. I really loved my dad. I was a daddy's girl through and through. And so when all of that happened, it really shook up my world and made me really rethink everything. And I tried to go down that generic path of like, well, let me go buy a house and let me, try and do all the things that, life tells us to. And I'm 22 at this age, right? And so I'm like, okay, let me try and buy a house. I try to buy a house. It doesn't work out. Like the market gets past what I can afford at that time, which, back then it was affordable compared to now.
Insane.
But yeah, and I really was hard on myself, and an opportunity came along where I was finishing up my bachelor's degree in business, and the dean of the business administration department was like, you should look into the study abroad program. And I was like, nah, I don't know, like I don't need that. And he's like, no, you really should. And I was like, okay, screw it, like why not, like let me just look into this. And it was the perfect scenario, and I ended up taking that study abroad trip with a little bit of money I got from my dad passing away. So I really do equate like that piece of my life. It's really hard for me because it's like the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow.
And it changed my life. I studied abroad in Czech Republic and Hong Kong, and then I backpacked to 10 different countries with my best friend to all across Europe through backpacking and train travel. And it was absolutely incredible. And at the end of it, I was just like, I almost wasn't able to do this. Like if my dad hadn't passed away and I gotten that little bit of money, there was no way I would have been able to afford it. And people shouldn't have to go through the worst thing in their life to be able to experience this. And I just found so much hope in being able to share that with other people. And I started sharing that journey back then, never knowing what it would lead to today. But now, yeah, I'm a traveler through and through. I love meeting people around the world and sharing that experience.
Wow, that's so freaking cool. And then, so you fell in love, and then how soon after did you have to like set off again? Did you wait like a few years, or were you just like 6 months later, you're like, I got to get out of here?
Great question. I actually came back in at the end of 2018. And then at that point, I had traveled more of Europe than I had than the United States. And so I was like, okay, well, let me go and travel the United States. One of my goals is also to see all the states in the United States. And so I started, I got back October of 2018, and then February of 2019, I had trips planned to Portland, Oregon. That was my first solo trip. And that also changed my life. I'm sure we can go all into that as well. But like that was my first solo trip that changed my perspective even further. But that was right here within the United States. And I did get the travel, but I was like, I wanted to leave my hometown, and I was ready to go. And I was like just thirsting for more. But I actually scheduled a couple of different trips in the United States that first year. And then I had scheduled in 2020, I had scheduled like my dream trip to go to Budapest in Austria. It was supposed to be a solo trip, and I was really excited, but then the pandemic hit. So my trip got canceled, and I was really sore about that for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, but I made up that trip already. So I've been to Budapest and Austria since. But yeah, then that kind of threw into a whole nother tailspin of other things that I ended up doing, starting my nonprofit and all of that.
Wow, that's so great. So while you're traveling, are in this new arena of not with the people, were you traveling solo right off the bat, or did you go with friends at first? How did you just jump in?
Yeah, so the study abroad was the
Study
first
abroad.
real bit of me traveling, right? So before it had always been with family or whatever it might be, to places with family. And so when I studied abroad, I was with a group of 10 other students and 2 professors in Czech Republic and Hong Kong, and they were kind of showing us around. And that was really a great way for me to understand the transportation system over in Europe, because here in America, we do not have public transportation like they do over there. So that was a really good setting stone. And then when me and my best friend backpacked, we took it to the next level, going on public transport, country to country, staying in hostels, etc. And that was what gave me a really good foundation to be able to go and do it on my own. So I always love, sharing with people like, hey, you can start off traveling with other people. But then what really, really changed me was when I got back from that trip and I went overseas to Portland, or sorry, not overseas, when I went to Portland, Oregon, which was really funny. When I went to Portland, Oregon, which I live in Florida, right? Portland, Oregon is on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Nobody batted an eye. No, everybody was like, have fun, have a great time. I'm like, I'm going to the other side of the country. No, I don't know anybody. But when I went to Europe, everybody was like, don't die. Like, what? What is this?
Wow.
Like, it was insane to like get that perspective, because I was just in Europe and I felt completely safe over there. And I was like, nobody's even batting an eye that I'm going to the other side of the country and I know nobody. But
Wow.
all right. So when I went to Portland,
and also just like you're going to like it sounds like a small town where like everyone just has farms and you could get like murdered and thrown into the woods. Well, you know what I mean? Also on top of that.
Yeah. Portland is actually a pretty bustling city. It's smaller compared to like Seattle or, New York, of course.
Isn't there a show called Portland?
What?
Isn't there a show called Portland?
I don't know.
I think it's like about the city. Portland, Oregon?
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Okay. I haven't seen the show. Or
okay,
movie,
so wait, what happened when you got there?
So I got there, and I was like kind of afraid to go. Like I wasn't afraid, like I was embracing it, but like I really didn't know what to expect. And most people call me more of an extrovert. I call myself an ambivert, but like I went there with an open mind, and I stayed in a hostel. Hostels do exist in the United States. It's a very affordable way to travel. There's tip number 1. And I paid probably $25-$30 a night at that hostel over in the city center. And what's funny is there's not a lot of people from the United States who stay in hostels. So it was all people from other countries. Like I met some Australians and I met a girl from Korea and like all of these things, right? So I was having a great time, and like it felt very familiar like when I was in Europe. And then I remember, this was my first time doing a solo trip. And so there was this moment that I will never forget. And I remember I was having dinner or something like that. I went on a walking tour with some people from the hostel, made some friends, and we were all talking. We're like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, oh, I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to go to the West Coast. I'm from Florida. Florida beaches, very flat. And I was like, I have never been to the actual West Coast of the United States. And I'm really excited for that. So they were like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then one of them said, oh, can we come with you? And normally my normal reaction would be absolutely, right? So like those words came out of my mouth and I was like, yeah. And like, but like I had this like automatic, like
I could hear it
in my voice. And I was like, what just happened? And they obviously picked up on it.
Yeah.
And I was
what
like,
did I'm offended.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. They were like, okay. And then the next day I was like, so do you guys want to come? Like, and they were like, no, we're going to stay. And like something internally in me was like, yes. And I was like, I never felt that before.
Wow.
So I took the car, I went to the West Coast, and I will tell you, it was the most freeing thing I have ever done, because I was driving down this road and I was looking at the map and I was like, oh, I could take this road. And I was like, nobody's going to tell me no. Nobody's in the car right now telling me no. Like I could just go. And I took a detour that took me like an extra hour, and nobody was like, we got to go, like rushing me. And I had never realized that I never felt the freedom to like do the things that I really wanted to do without other people's opinions.
Yeah.
We don't realize how much of our decisions are based off of other people until we're completely removed from it. And in those moments, I was like enjoying just being on my own time and not anyone else's time. And it was life-changing. Like I I just embraced every single second of it and ended up going to the West Coast, seeing mountains on beaches that I didn't even know existed. I was like, what? Mountains on beaches exist? And I saw the most beautiful sunset with elk grazing. Like, I wish I could pull up this picture really quickly, but like, it was incredible, like for my first time. And ever since that, I learned so much about myself and like what I actually wanted to do because I was in that situation. But yeah, it taught me so much about myself and just like what I wanted.
Wow. That's so cool. What a difference in mindset over just one trip.
Just one trip.
Yeah.
And I love traveling solo because of that. Because I even if I'm single now, but like, even if I have a husband and everything, and of course I want to do travel with them, but like, I feel like it's so important to like check in with ourselves. And I do that when I solo travel, when I go on hikes by myself, when I'm clearing my brain. Like, I'm a very go person. I am very like a multi-entrepreneur. I'm doing all the things, but like, I need that space and time for myself too, so I can recoup and like understand check in with myself and see where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I do that through solo travel.
Very, very cool. Wow. So hostels.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie?
No.
Is
it called Hostel?
There's a movie called Hostel. If you want to look that up and pull it up on the screen. It's
by the way, there is a show called Portland. It's called how do you pronounce that? I don't even know.
Portlandia.
Portlandia. It depicts a life in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, interesting. I wonder how. 2011, 2018. I really want to watch that.
It's comedy.
Oh.
And I've seen it once or twice. It's actually really hilarious. Okay, so a movie called Hostel.
It's go back A-L or E-L. E-L, yeah. So if you look up that.
Oh my gosh, it already looks scary.
Yeah, go to the images. Look at how bad. There's multiple movies.
Gosh.
There's multiple movies. Go to images and like at the top where it says all. Yeah. And like that's funny. Look up Hostel the movie. That's what they actually look like.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I've seen the movie. But it never look at how bad this looks. Look at this. This is not true at all.
Do you not see the movie
I run into, and they're like, "Oh, but the movie Hostel, I would never stay." And I'm like, "What? It has nothing to do with it."
Dude, this is intense.
It's a scary movie.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is why they think traveling's expensive, because they don't know about hostels.
Oh, that's great. The only thing I've heard about hostels is a lot of times you're sleeping in close quarters and snoring. That's the only negative thing I've heard. It's just like people are loud ass when they sleep, and you have to be like okay with that.
Yeah, and a lot of people, travel with earplugs. They also like usually give earplugs at the front. And what's really cool about hostels is that you actually can choose your comfort level from multiple areas. So like you can choose how many people you want to be in the room. So usually they offer like 4, 6, 8, 10, sometimes more beds in a room. But then you can also go down to the level of like, oh, do you want to be in a female only dorm or a male only dorm? Or do you want to be in a mixed dorm with female and male, right? And so recently I was just at a hostel, where was that? In Belgium, in Ghent, Belgium. And the guy in there during the day was snoring so loud. This man sounded like a train going through the thing. It was hilarious. Like we were talking normal and he could not hear us. But that was honestly the worst. Like that was just recently. And I've stayed in like probably over 100 hostels at this point. And that was like the worst experience that I've had. But it wasn't even like that at night. It was just like he was sleeping during the day and it was that bad.
I feel like if you're in that though, you just kind of get used to it, right? Doesn't your body just kind of like, it just learns to sleep if it needs to sleep after a while?
Yeah. And I know that some people are really sensitive and they're light sleepers. And that, is completely valid, which is great because a lot of hostels also offer private room options. They're a little bit more expensive, obviously. And as more specific you get. So if you have 4 beds, a 4-bedroom is going to be like a couple dollars more than a 10-bedroom, right?
Yeah.
So it's just based off of your comfortability and how many people you want in the room. But if you get a private room, those rooms are still cheaper than going to a hotel. And what's really incredible about the hostel aspect is that you get the community. You get to meet people during breakfast. Everybody is in a social atmosphere. For most hostels, they really try to incorporate a social atmosphere in their places.
And then is there like, can you just come in at any time and just like turn on the lights, or like is there lights off rules? How does that work if you're in with 10 people?
So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have like hostels will have rules for like lights out and or no noise by a certain time, depending on the area and depending on the hostel. There's different types of hostels too, just like hotels. So we have hotels, we have motels, we have the in-betweens, right? Same thing with hostels. There's party hostels. So if you don't want to party, don't go to a party hostel. And then there are ones that are more mom and pop hostels or more like relaxed. And you can look at those, like what the type of hostel it is in the reviews. So some of them do have the like quiet time at certain times. And then yes, technically people can come into a room and like turn on a light at any point, but a lot of times people are very respectful because they're aware of what they would not want done to them, right? Yeah. So a lot of times people are very respectful. The only time that you're really going to probably get less respectful people about it is in those party hostels because people are coming in drunk or whatever and getting into their bed or making noise. But you know, that's not the experience that like you have to have. If you want to party, great, go there, but you don't have to stay at party hostels.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's the like living. So then we have like food and flights.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
So food, two very separate topics, but food I love. First of all, I spend little on my accommodation so that I can eat my way through my heart. You know what I mean?
That's the way I would be too. Yeah.
Where it matters, you know? So that's where my money's going. I am only going to be in my my living accommodations to sleep. If I'm really traveling, I'm not going to be in there. I'm going to be out and about looking at the place that I'm visiting, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that's where a misconception for a lot of Americans get, you know, is like, you know, oh, wanting this huge luxurious place that you're not even going to stay in, right? So I spend my money on food, and depending on where you go, food can be very affordable and or not. A lot of times if you're in the city centers of places, yeah, food's going to be more expensive, just like if you go to New York, just like if you go to Chicago and like Miami or any main city center of a main city. But if you go to the outskirts, right, or if you go to like more local places, it's going to be a lot more affordable. And so I always ask locals where I should go to eat. I always try to find the local to be like, hey, where's the place that I need to eat? Like, where is it? And then they'll tell me, and I have incredible food experiences doing that. And so I could talk about food all day, but when it comes to flights, to answer the second part of your question, there's a lot of different ways to get affordable flights. And so one, there's travel hacking ways. So you can actually, you know, utilize credit card points, smart, like not overutilizing your credit card, but utilizing a credit card that is going to be specific for travel. I have paid for very minimal flights in my life. During these past 7 years, I haven't paid for many flights because I maximize my credit card points. And so I'm
able to do that with multiple credit cards, or you just have one, or how do you do yours?
I do have multiple that I've gotten over the years. I don't get like 10 at one time, right? But what it is about maximizing the sign-on bonuses. And so if you get a credit card and they have they have different sign-on bonuses throughout the year. Sometimes it's like 30,000, 40,000 or whatever, but you always want, like, when you sign up for a credit card, you want to be very intentional about it and understanding like, okay, is this the best deal that they're offering at this time, right? Because there's very specific times a year that they do that. And so some of them, I typically do not sign up for a credit card unless it has 60,000 or more points sign-on bonus. And so you usually have to spend a certain amount in a time frame. So if it's like, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 within 3 months or 6 months, I use my credit card. Like I don't buy things that I wouldn't typically buy, right? So like if I'm buying gas, if I'm buying groceries, or if I'm buying different things, there's different strategies behind it, but I'm not spending money I wouldn't already spend. So you should be paying off your credit card every single month, right? It's not about getting that money and then not paying it off and then paying interest on it, because that's where you lose when it comes to credit cards.
Yeah.
So if you're able to pay off that balance every month, then you can win against the game with the credit cards and you can get these points. And so 60,000 points can get you a round trip ticket to Europe and 2 domestic flights in the United States, if you're smart about it. So that's 3 round trip flights. And or if you're just doing it in the United States, it can be up to 5 or 6 round trip flights.
Wow.
Points. Yeah. I've gotten, and this was very rare, but like I tell people, they're like, oh, like how do you decide where you travel? And I was like, I go where the cheap flights take me. So I will look at a map. There's a Google Explore option. And I look at a map and I'll be like, where's the cheapest flight? And like, if I want to go in a certain point, and then I'll go there if I haven't been there before, or if I want to go back. And with that, I'm actually able to, you can look up the flight costs, but then there's certain deals that happen throughout the year. So I've actually gotten a round trip ticket to Ecuador for 4,000 points, which is like, that's like $20. That's like equivalent.
Totally.
And I was like, I have no reason to go to Ecuador, but I'm going to Ecuador. Guess what? Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
So, it's about flexibility, and you can really find cheap flights anywhere you want to go if you're flexible with it. And you are, even by a day or 2.
Yeah. So credit cards, just a Google search will do that, right? Like traveling, credit cards that give you travel points.
Yeah. So credit cards with travel points, there's 2 different types of cards, because a lot of times people look at, American Airlines or JetBlue, and those cards can be a good starting point.
Oh yeah. Every time you go on a flight, they try to sell you a credit card.
Yep, correct. And so that can be that was my first credit card, was an American Airlines credit card. And I did love it, but there's a difference between specific points. So those are like, if you're getting American Airline points, you can use it for American Airlines, unless then there's like a whole transfer aspect of it. But like, essentially you're going to use those for American Airlines. Or if you're getting a Chase travel credit card, or an American Airline or American Express travel credit card, or Capital One, those points are flexible and you can use them for multiple flights. So like, you don't have to use them for
flight and then use the points versus having to go on American.
Correct.
And then finding out that one of the other airlines was cheaper.
Correct. Ultimately. Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, you can Google, of course, there's plenty of people who talk about travel hacking. And I have, I am a mild expert. Like, I've done quite a bit of it. I have a lot of friends that are experts in the space. And that's actually some of the people that I'm looking to bring into like my community to teach people how to do that. Yeah. So it's really it gets very deep. Like, you can go pretty far with the travel hacking aspect. But for those just starting out, like even just knowing how to utilize Google Flights properly to find cheap flights, I've had people tell me like, oh, I can't find a flight to Europe for cheaper than $1,000. And I'm like, you are not looking in the right place, because you can easily find flights to Europe round trip for $500 round trip. Wow. Like cash. Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is great. Okay. So that helps us with the cost. I mean, the other thing would be just the nerves around it, right? Women traveling by themselves. You hear all these crazy stories about people just getting abducted, taken, missing, never found again. Yep. What are your thoughts? What are some, secrets around just staying safe?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of ways to stay safe. I will say that I understand there's a lot of fear around, fear is a very powerful thing. It's used way too often in our world, right? And so I want to just like let everyone know that like traveling is not as dangerous as the world makes it out to be. And I'm coming from a woman, not a man saying that, right? And I have been to 29 countries. And I'm telling you right now, I have not felt more unsafe there than I have in Miami or Chicago. Like, I feel more unsafe in Miami and Chicago. I can walk the streets of Europe and be fine. And when I hear people talk about like how dangerous it is in some places, I'm not saying that danger doesn't exist. It does exist everywhere, but I'm not going to not leave my house because of danger, right? Danger could be right outside my door, no matter where I live. Yeah. And so we all have to be aware of our surroundings when we are traveling. And so one of the things that you can have when you're traveling is just being aware of your surroundings, but then also being very confident. So if someone does approach you or says something and you're uncomfortable, being firm in what you're doing. For instance, this just happened ironically on the beach of Miami. It happened to me. I was on Miami and I'm on the beach and I'm taking my photos, it's sunrise, etc. And a guy comes up and he's like, oh, and he's like trying to talk. And eventually I figured out that he was just really like, he was traveling solo and he really just like wanted to connect and be friends or whatever. But he was like interested in me. And I could tell he was interested in me. I don't want to get into details of how I could tell, but yeah. And so there was, and there was some evidence of him being interested. And I was like, I'm not, like, I feel so uncomfortable right now. And I just said to him, like, no, like, I'm good. There were other people around. So I made sure that, I wasn't like in a scenario where anything could have been, but I was just like, no, like, I'm not interested in like, he was like, oh, like, can I take a picture of you? Like, do you need me to take a picture of you? I think he saw me taking pictures of myself and wanted to and I was like, no, I'm okay. Thank you. And then I walked away and I was very aware of my surroundings. I'm not like fully pulling my back to myself, but I walked towards an area where there were more people. So like, you just have to be aware. And at the end of the day, he ended up being like at the place that I was staying, because I was staying at a hostel in Miami, because they do exist. And he was there, and he told me he was traveling solo. So I realized he was just kind of lonely. And I think he did tell me it was his first solo trip. So it's like, I wanted to like be like, oh, so congratulations to you. But at the same time, my safety, I want to make sure that I'm okay and like that I'm comfortable. So we just have to be aware. And if you're confident, you're less likely to have something happen, as well as if you are traveling solo somewhere and a situation does happen, or someone's like, oh, are you traveling solo? Like, don't give up that information that you're traveling solo. Like, say, if you don't feel comfortable, if it's not a comfortable environment, say, no, my friend's actually right around the corner. Or, if you feel like someone's following you or whatever it is. I have had very few situations, if any. There's maybe one, and I wasn't even, and it didn't turn out to be anything. One situation where I felt like somebody was following me, and I, stood my ground with it. And I was just like, are you following me? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he ended up turning around and walking the other way, So it's just about having that confidence. And I know that can be hard for some, but you just have to be aware of your surroundings, because no matter where you are, whether you're in the United States or another country, you just have to be aware.
Does it matter if you look like a traveler versus you look like a...
Yes, it does. So I would say that no matter where you are, right, you want to make sure that you're not over blingy, right? Because people, they can tell travelers, and I'm a very casual dresser just in general. Like I'm not like dressing to the nines when I'm traveling. I've got like my, regular t-shirt and pants. It just depends on the cities that you're in. Obviously, if you're in Paris or if you're in a bigger city, that has more fashion or whatever it is, feel free to dress up. Like, nobody's going to bat an eye. But if you're in, Ecuador and you have a huge gold chain or something like that, yeah, it's something to be mindful of. Because I have heard stories, and I've known people who have had, petty theft happen to them in some degree. Because when you do go to these places, you have to understand, and I actually explain this to people who like go to the resorts, because when they go to the resorts, right, of a country, bad people exist everywhere, right? Yeah. So you go to a resort of a country and you're at a very expensive resort. The people who live there know that this is an expensive resort. And so what does the resort tell you? Don't go beyond our beaches, right? Which makes you feel the impression that the country is dangerous and that you can't go beyond the borders of the beaches, right? But really the reality is the bad people know where the rich people are. And so if they're going to be anywhere, why wouldn't they be at the edge of that beach, right? Yeah. But if you get beyond that, like, majority of people you meet are extremely nice. And I feel like that is the lesson in learning. Like, when we go to these places, I have dropped my credit card, my nice metal credit card, in the middle of Costa Rica at this place where nobody spoke English. And I dropped my credit card, and they knew that I was visiting there because I had a conversation with the one guy who spoke English was at the top of the place or whatever. It was like this hot spring area. And a family found my credit card, gave it to the security guard. The security guard brought it to the top. And the guy was like, oh, this is the Americans that are here. And the guy came and found me to give me my credit card back.
Love that.
In the middle of Costa Rica. Like,
Love that.
I didn't even know I lost my credit card at that point. That's how quickly I'd gotten it back.
That's the best.
So, I mean, that in itself is speaking to like that all people aren't bad, right? Just because we hear about these bad situations doesn't mean that that's a majority of people. You need to be aware, and you need to be aware if you are flaunting it, that you are more likely to get taken advantage of in that degree.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I get that. Two things that came up for me. One, how do you wash your clothes?
Great question. So when you're staying at hotels, they don't have laundry, right? But hostels actually a lot of times do. They have on-site laundry where you can actually wash your clothes. And so I've loved, like, I usually look at that. So if I'm planning a trip and I'm staying at multiple hostels, like I'll look at that. Like, does a hostel have laundry there? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to do laundry at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
If a place does not have laundry, then there are laundromats, just like, you would do in a city. Like in New York, a lot of people don't have washing machines, so they go to laundromats, and they exist in other countries too. And I have done that as well. So, and they're usually really affordable, and you just sit there and stay with your clothes. I've actually left my clothes in the washer and come back and been fine. And it's just like integrating into daily life for them,
Totally. And then when you're staying at a hostel, I'm assuming you don't leave your stuff there, right? You have to kind of have travel light.
No, you do. Well, I do travel light. That's a whole other topic for women, right? So like, I know how hard it is for women to travel light, which we can get into. But the aspect of hostels. So like if you're staying in a dormitory style, they do provide lockers for every person in the room. Okay. So you can actually put your stuff in a locker. But what I will say is that a majority of time, like people will put their like really like valuable stuff sometimes in that locker, but a lot of times there's a trust in hostel world. Like again, if I don't want someone to steal from me, why would I steal from someone else, right? Totally. And a majority of people who are traveling in these scenarios, and I'm not saying that bad people don't exist, right? But a majority of people like do leave their stuff out, and they're comfortable with that, because I'm like, at the end of the day, if you're going to steal my clothes, like, have fun. Like it's one of those trust aspects. And hostels actually have like, some of them have like blacklists. Like, so if you do anything bad and it's reported, like they will let their network of hostels know, and then you won't be able to go to those other hostels, especially if it's like a bigger hostel. Ooh, that's like, consider it like a Generator is one of the more chain hostels. So they could ban you from going to any of their other Generator hostels, which is like, compare that to like a Hilton or, it's like a more upscale hostel. So yeah, they're very serious about safety in these hostels and wanting to make sure people are safe. But yeah, they do provide lockers. So you bring your own lock, and then you're able to put it onto the locker.
Wow. This is so great. I'm taking down another note. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really one of those things that people underestimate. And I've stayed at hostels for as low as $5 a night in some countries, in South America and Central America, and felt completely safe. Like people, if you're able to find the biggest thing is flight and accommodations when traveling, because the rest is up to you. Like if you're going on crazy excursions, that's going to cost you a lot, right? But you can do traveling on a budget, especially if you have just a backpack, which I know can be hard for a woman. But I'll tell you, it's actually really empowering to like live from a backpack. Like I have learned to pack down. I'm like, if it can't fit in the backpack, like it ain't going. Like it just can't go. And how many times do we pack something and we never even wear it? Yeah. Right. And it's like, we just have to be mindful of like, it really is that materialistic mindset that a lot of us are taught kind of in the United States, of needing more stuff. But when you realize how little you can live off of, like it's like a whole nother level. I'm like, wow, like I've been starting to downsize my closet a lot, because I'm like, if I could live out of a backpack for 2 months, 3 months, like what do I have all this stuff for? Like,
totally. Yeah, my ex and I, we used to joke because I'm a really good packer. I can pack minimal. I'm been traveling within the United States for years, and I've just gotten really good at it. Spirit, if you don't have any luggage with you, Spirit, you can friggin' fly so cheap.
So cheap.
So I just got really good at it. Just all my shit's in a bag, and the most I would ever travel is 7 days or something like that. My ex, though, we used to kind of make fun of each other. He was one of those people that all of a sudden he'd be like, I'm going to start reading on this trip. And he'd bring like 3 books. He's like, just think like a hat, like 2 hats that he never wears.
Yeah.
He'll just like pack those 2 hats. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like none of the stuff that he was like all of a sudden going to start doing, he would never use.
Yeah.
And he always just stuck. I'm like, why don't you just bring the stuff that you just know that you use every day? Why are we packing so much? He's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just feel like I'm just going to do all this stuff when I'm there. And I'm like, yeah, but we never do. So,
well, and that's really a thing about Americans traveling though, is that like, because our lifestyle is so much different than like other countries, like, because in other countries, they have 4 to 6 weeks vacation. Like they travel a lot more because it's more custom for their area. So like when we as Americans travel, you have to understand, most people do not have 2 weeks paid vacation. Some do, but it's not standard in our country where it's standardized in other countries. And so because of that mentality, when they go on vacation, they're like, I'm going to do all the things that I never do. They have that mentality, like, I'm going to read books. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to do all the things. And like, it's almost like this escapism aspect of like traveling. Like I'm escaping my life and I'm going to do all the things that I always wanted to do. And then like, they don't do them. And they're so go when they're traveling, like doing all the things all the time. Like that's how people know they're American travelers, because they're like, we got a full book of itinerary. We're going on this trip. No breathing room. Come back. You need a vacation from your vacation.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. 100. Well, listen, this has been absolutely phenomenal. We have a ton of people watching live. I would love for you to talk briefly about what exactly you do. Who should be reaching out to you?
Absolutely. So I have been building a community, and I am in the final stages of building this community out, where I want to bring together experts that are like myself, that love adventure traveling, that do it solo, etc., for different types of people all around. My focus is on inspiring women to travel solo, because I do think it's that most life-changing thing that they can do. But I have other people, like with the travel and points that we were talking about, with the backpacking aspect, and with hotels, if that's something that you want to do, like understanding how to travel affordably. And so I'm building this community of people that we can share this information on a regular basis. And that is what Moxie's vision and goal is going to be, is just teaching and inspiring people to travel on a budget, because this American aspect of traveling, that has to be expensive because we were sold these luxury travel aspects, is not what the world is, right? And I actually have on my arm tattooed a quote that I got in a hostel, on the rooftop of a hostel in Colombia. And it says, we travel not to escape life, but for life not to escape us. And so I live by that every day, and I want other people to live by that, because when we travel, it shouldn't be to escape our lives. It should be to be comfortable with ourselves, to really enjoy this life that we are living. And so those are the people I want. If you are tired of just doing the day-to-day rat race of life, and you want to like get out of that and break that, and you can do that through travel, and you can learn about yourself. And so those are the experiences I want to help people get on the next track with through this community. And we've done some group trips as well. So there's some others coming up in the future if you need like a stepping stone to like get to that point. But we want to create a community that really helps others to take the step to go on the solo trip, or go on the trip. Just go somewhere. If you never left your state, go to another state, right? How do we help you get there? So that's what I am building. And so that is what Moxie Adventure Partners is all about. So you can go to moxieadventurepartners.com. You can go to luciemcguire.com to get there. And we are just really excited to continue to grow. I'm excited to continue to grow this community of people to help this group of people in the United States who would never otherwise be able to travel or think that it's impossible for them, make it realize that it is possible.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this is absolutely phenomenal. As far as individuals wanting to follow you on social, where do you hang out the most?
Yeah, so they can find me at I am Lucie McGuire. So that will get you connected to me in all the ways. So I have my own travel page where I share all of my travel as well. But the I am Lucie McGuire is the best way to get in contact with me.
I love that. I am Lucie McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart. I have like, that's like a good, what would that be called? Like,
it's like my umbrella, Instagram, Facebook, all of that for like everything that I do. Cause I'm a multi-entrepreneur and I'm doing all the things. So it's like a really great way for people to keep in touch with everything that I'm doing.
Fabulous. Oh, I love this so much. Very, very cool. Well, so excited to have you here. So excited to hear all this wonderful, inspiring information on how we can get going in this area as far as traveling goes. I know that there's so many women out there. I was looking it up, and there's more Google searches for solo traveling than ever before.
Yep,
than ever before.
True.
So very, very cool. Closing thoughts as we wrap up.
Closing thoughts. Just if you feel like you were never able to do it, or you've had an inkling of a desiring to want to go and travel, like you can't wait. Like it's one of those things where I feel like it's the easiest, where we just say, oh, I'll wait until the next year. But I think if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that life is short. Change happens. You never know. There's a lot of people who are kind of going through, they're probably calling it revenge travel right now, because like they went through a time period where they could not travel, right? People had trips booked in 2020 and 2021. And then now like people are like, okay, now I can finally do it. So they're starting to travel a lot more, which is great. But just when you go to these places, I encourage you to go beyond just the places that you've always thought about, right? Or ever always heard about, like Paris or Rome, right? Those places are beautiful and incredible, and there is so much history within them, and you should definitely go to them. But make sure that you're going beyond those places too. Look up another city in those countries, because you won't get the full country experience and the culture if you stay in the big hyped areas. That's like going to Miami and being like, I went to Florida. Like, sorry, you didn't. That's not it. That's not it.
Totally.
So go beyond that and just really talk to the locals, and you'll find that people are more kind than you realize, and that we all have the same wants, needs, and desires, and we all just want to be happy in this world. And the more we can connect, the more we can make this world a better place.
Love that. Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. For those of you that are listening live or on the replay, Lucie McGuire. She can be found at luciemcguire.com. It is in a clickable link in the description below, wherever you're watching us at. And then she is across all social media as I am Lucie McGuire. Super cute.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. I really appreciate it.
Yes, 100%. For those of you listening live or on the replay, make sure you follow, like, and share. Thank you for listening to us till the very end here. And once again, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I am the host here at Her Talk Show, and I run a community called Her Nation Global, where we are dedicated to having conversations just like this one, to help you uplift, right? Uplift your life in every way, personally and professionally.